That's me. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council. This meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube as a way for our members of the public to participate. Please state your name when making a comment and asking a question. I'll ask that you keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. And we will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the council. When I call your name, please unmute and let us know your affiliation. Patricia Abieta Young.
Hello, here.
Thank you. Celeste Adams.
Here.
Here. Oh, you snuck in, Celeste. Welcome. Zach Altman. Emily Karen. Tanya Runtan, attending as a proxy for Joshua Clark.
I'm here, and I've actually taken his spot, so I don't
Oh, you
know
take it.
that-
Oh, that's right. You're official now. Thank you.
I am, yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Councilmember Ali Klein is no longer in office. Vice Mayor Ellis, Vice Chair.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Chair Ernst.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. Councilmember Calaviankis as proxy for Mayor Friedel.
Yes, I'm here. I just joined the meeting on the phone because I'm having audio and visual problems on my computer.
Thank you. I feel your pain. That's why I'm on my phone as well. The internet has gone out. All right.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Welcome. Cindy Garcia.
Present.
Thank you. Laura Gild.
Here. I'm here present.
Thank you, Laura. Christine Hahn McDonald.
Present, and I just wanted to let you know I will be hopping off just a few minutes early, right around 3 o'clock.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. Danielle Shager is proxy for Elizabeth Herbert.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Samantha Hinchy.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodge.
Present. I'm having computer problems, so if you see me drop off, it's because the whole city, right? Our whole third floor is having problems. And also, I have another meeting starts at 3, so I'm gonna have to drop off right before 3.
Okay, perfect. We will be efficient today, I think. Thank you very much. Cindy Severino is proxy for Marilyn Kasanik.
Present.
Excellent, thank you. Patricia Carr has stepped down. Councilmember Loretano is no longer in office. Andrew Lefevre. He indicated he might not be able to make it just earlier before this meeting. Kevin Mattingly.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Norton.
Here, and I'd like to say hi to Cindy Savarino. How are you doing?
I know.
I'm good, thank you.
Do you remember?
Yep, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Amy Offenberg.
Present.
Carol Park Hayden.
Present.
Thank you. Chris Charlo. Amy Marmol as proxy for Melissa Thomas.
Present.
Thank you. Councilmember Torgerson as proxy for Councilmember Tilke. Okay. Madam Chair, we do have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. For all of those who are experiencing technical difficulties, we really appreciate you being here. Our next item is a call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. Members of the public can submit written comments via the MAG website up to 2 hours prior to the meeting. Amy, do we have any written comments for items?
Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comments for this meeting.
Thank you. There is no informational items scheduled for this meeting, so we're going to move to item number 4. Our next item is approval of the December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does any member of the council have any questions? Hearing none. Staff, do we have any written comments for this item?
Madam Chair, we do not.
Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Carol Park Aiden. I so move.
Thank you, Carol. Do I have a second?
Vice Mayor Christine Ellis, I'm second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. We will now take a voice vote. Members participating online can take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, Amy will conduct a roll call vote. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Give you a couple minutes to get your cameras on. Amy, whenever you want to. Oh, I'm sorry. The roll call vote. We're going to do a roll call vote for those who are in favor of moving forward with the minutes from December. Please say aye. For those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
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 Amy, can you go ahead and take the roll call of members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I call your name, please unmute and let us know your vote. Patricia? Patricia Abieta Young? Okay. Sam?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Kalvanakis?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Norton?
Aye.
Thank you. Carol Park Aiden?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Oh, you did not call on me.
I'm sorry, who's this, please?
Vice Mayor Christine Ellis.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Ellis. How do you vote?
Aye.
Sorry. I
Okay.
had in my mind that you seconded the motion, so I thought you voted, but correct.
And me,
Yes,
Councilor Hodge didn't. I voted aye too.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. Looks like Amy Marmol, your camera is off. How do you vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Did I miss anyone?
Amy,
Thank you very much.
for the record, I did not vote because I was not at the meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
Madam Chair, is that you?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so for not voting, I've got Patricia and our chair. Everyone else voted in favor. Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, moving to item number 5. During our last meeting, we approved an interview guide to gather feedback from domestic violence stakeholders to help inform and assess an assessment of the regional human services planning at MAG. Hunter Franklin, MAG's intern, joins us to share the insights gleaned from the interviews conducted. I will now turn the floor over to Hunter.
Thank you, Chair Ernst, and thank all of you for giving me time to speak with you today. I'm going to be going over some of the trends and findings that I've been able to gather from the few interviews I conducted and go over some research with all of you. Can we please move to the next slide? Thank you. So some key takeaways from the stakeholder interviews. Many of our stakeholders express a desire to come up with more preventative measures when it comes to domestic violence, and a lot of these preventative measures are surround the idea and the concept of having more domestic violence-oriented education, both in our schools and in our courts. And some other topics that our stakeholders brought up were providing more options for safe housing placements. There is a strong level of demand for housing options for domestic violence survivors throughout our community. And many of our stakeholders brought up the desire to collaborate more with Native nations to provide more resources. There are a lot of great opportunities here to expand outreach and to reach more survivors on nations and also provide more DV-oriented education in those communities. Another thing that stakeholders brought up was that families need more resources when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, especially with youth, as do law enforcement. And that was another concern that was brought up with stakeholders. And these were the main takeaways and themes that I was able to gather from our stakeholders in the interviews I conducted. Can we move to the next slide, please? I also did some research to try and gain some outside perspective and see what other communities are doing to address the problem of domestic violence. And so I was able to come across some interesting ideas while I was going through and doing this research. A few states across the country have been trying to create their own domestic violence offender registries. Since 2011, New York State has been pursuing this concept of creating their own domestic violence registry. It has passed the Senate at least 8 times in New York State, but it's never been fully passed and fully made it through their state legislature. The state of Texas, on the other hand, has actually passed and created their own domestic violence offender registry, and they have that available both to law enforcement and the public. And they also have an order of protection registry that keeps track of situations where people file orders of protection, against situations that involve, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, and also stalking. Some other projects I came across that were fascinating were these pilot projects that have been going on in the United Kingdom. And these projects give survivors more options over where they live. One specific town council near London, England, came up with this novel idea of trying to give options where survivors can actually stay and live in their homes and where they're living so they don't have to be displaced, and that instead the perpetrator of domestic violence would be forced to move out and leave the house. And they also wanted to tie some of these programs where the perpetrator moves out of the house to these intervention programs, these trainings where domestic violence perpetrators could be given classes and training on how to be better people and how not to engage in domestic violence and how to change their behavior in exchange for temporary housing away from their families. And these temporary housing facilities would have security that would allow families to go and visit their relative who was, guilty or had issues with domestic violence. So they could have a safe space for interaction while that individual works on dealing with their issues that they're dealing with and their behavior management. And so I thought that was a very unique and unusual program, and I thought I should bring it up to the council here. It's a unique finding I came across. Another thing I found while doing my research was that some councils in the UK have spent a lot of time and resources in trying to get more in community engagement in their councils and trying to really embed survivor voice and input in their councils. And so one of the ways they do that is they try to have representation among the community of people who have actually experienced domestic violence within their council. They want to make sure that their councils, have composition that reflects the people that they serve. Can we move to the next slide? So after all this, I would like to get some input from the council based on some of the trends that we've been seeing in our own community, and also to get their input on, some of these ideas I came across, just see what people have to say. Does anyone have any ideas on what we can do to address some of these issues? And what kind of perspective should we be seeking out in the future? Thank you for your time, and I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Thank you, Hunter. We appreciate the presentation. Is there anybody who would like to address the questions that are on the slide in front of us?
Madam Chair, if I may, this is Vice Mayor Christine Ellis. Can you tell me a little bit more about the concept of removing leave the victim into the home and removing the perpetrator, and then but also offering services to that person in other for them to become the person that need to go back into the home? Because in my mind, I'm thinking this might be very labor intense and resources intense also to be able to reunify this family through this concept. How was it able to be done?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Ellis. So they had very strict criteria for this program. Only certain individuals were allowed to be provided with short-term housing. And so basically the council had a referral committee made up of members of domestic violence agencies that would evaluate things on a case-by-case basis to decide whether a perpetrator would be worthy to go through this behavioral change and temporary housing program. And so it was only for very specific and certain situations. So for example, if someone had engaged in, and there's no such thing as, but basically if it wasn't severe, so, if you caught domestic violence at an early stage, an early case level, those are the more likely cases where someone would be able to participate in this program. And if they had certain character traits that were deemed too dangerous for the public, then they wouldn't be eligible for this program. So for example, if someone has a history of stalking, they would not be allowed in the program because they would be able to just go back home and, stalk their family. And so this was only for individuals who were truly willing to reform themselves and be better people, that this option was made available to them. And also these facilities required security and public funding to pay for the security at those facilities and for, the nonprofit work and the individuals who were, going through training and changing the behavior of a set of individuals. And another part of this program was that they conducted financial assessments for all families being impacted by this program to see if those families would need financial assistance when the perpetrator was moved into one of these facilities, or if the perpetrator, was arrested or incarcerated.
I'd like to add something.
Yes.
Go ahead, Member Norton.
Okay. In this regard on that, I think that you say they're doing this as a pilot in the UK, and of course, one of the things that we know in the UK is that they've also done a lot of other things just in regard to crime, such as, people are not allowed handguns, whereas in this country, we don't have any of those measures. And I know you said this would be for the, more initial situations of domestic violence. I think that experience will show that most often the times when it gets to that point where someone calls the police or wants to get a restraining order, it's not the first time for that to happen. The domestic violence has probably been ongoing, maybe starting first with the emotional and mental abuse, and then transferring to the physical as well. And that's a situation of for a survivor to stay in that environment where the perpetrator knows every nook and cranny in that home. I do not think that most would feel that safe, even though it's their home. And if they have children, they're used to it. They're scared. They've already been scared in that home. And, I know you talk about having this other, I think that whole concept would be utilized or successful in a very limited basis, because the violence that occurs within the home is it's real. It's very strong. And even when a survivor leaves the home, she has no guarantee that the perpetrator isn't going to find her. So when you were talking about the various things, I put a question on that particular point that was brought up about that pilot program. I'm not sure on that how successful, how well received it would be by victims. I do want to, and I know others may have some comments on that. So I just want to bring up one more thing, and then I'm sure we'll go back to it. The very first thing you talked about is providing courts and schools with more DV-oriented education. That is so important and so critical. And I think if we get that done in every community, that can have one of the greatest impacts on curbing and eliminating domestic violence, not just in one city, not just in one school district, but throughout the country. Or let's talk about throughout our state, throughout our cities, our county. That is so critical, and it takes the effort of everybody. And you mentioned about councils, and that is so important. If we, some of the cities around the valley, they have council members who are very actively involved and take this seriously and see the critical need for this. And that's something that's extremely needed in every city. So thank you for bringing those up, and I yield back.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ellis, I think I saw you come off of mute as well. Was there something you'd like to add?
Yeah, a couple of things that was just brought up was part of my questioning about it. How involved do we want to be into that family, and how early can we intervene, because of the fact that usually there is so much fear and harassment, all kinds of different things that will stop that person from alerting anyone to get involved into that early part of it. So maybe they have other mechanism there in the UK, and as you know, they are very intrusive there when it comes to people's rights, and cameras everywhere. People can call, and they don't live in silence like we do here. A lot of things are very wide open. People know about it. If your neighbor hear things, they report, and there's a lot of things like that can happen. But I'm still thinking that this could be a great model if the people will be willing to tell us early in the game that they were experiencing this kinds of problem. Maybe reporting it early is one of the major things that we need to educate about.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there any other council member who would like to make a comment?
Yeah, Amy, I raised my hand. Do you see? I raised my hand.
Please go ahead, Laura.
So thank you first for doing all this research. It's interesting. I'm speaking of the UK's response to batters, and years ago, Israel had started a program similar to this. And certainly what has been mentioned already, there's a lot of challenges to a program like this. But I wonder if there isn't some research that's been done on the outcomes, which would give not just this is the concept, this is what research over a period of time has shown as to what some of the barriers, the challenges, the successes, things like that might be interesting to look at. But the first thing you mentioned was going straight back to prevention work, education, awareness, which is what Councilwoman Ellis was just addressing. And I guess that really, that has always been with us. That need is always there. I don't think it's going to go away. And so maybe looking at how that's done, how can the idea of violence be more incorporated into all aspects of service delivery so that people see it more commonly as you would see some of the risk factors for diabetes or cancer or some of the other things where it's more considered just common public education. That might be something to look at. But, I hope that the council looks at some of these recommendations or ideas that have been brought forward and weave that into a strategic plan. So that's it.
Thank you, Council Member. I see Council Member Hodge.
Yes. Thank you. Just I guess piggyback on what everybody else is saying, me looking at it from another point of view, sometimes it comes to us through our children. So how can we do it in this, like bring it to education that like include the districts in on this information? So if a child, especially like middle school to high school age, see this is happening in their house and how they can get the information on trying to help too, because sometimes it does come in on I'm a school board member as well as a council member, and I've seen it's being reported by the children. So how do we make sure that the schools are getting this information so their children would have this information also?
Thank you, council member. I appreciate you. I also see Sam, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So I have a lot of things on my mind just listening to this and just talking about it. So first with the the stuff going on in the UK. So at ACES-DB, we've already been researching this. We've had conversations with Canada, also has a pilot program, and it's working really well. And so our COO has actually been having conversations, and we've been researching this as an alternative for survivors to be able to stay in their own home and have the perpetrator or the abuser take accountability by having to leave the home. And so this is something we're definitely into. We're working on that. I'm a little bit concerned with the registry. The registry, to me, can be problematic. And so New Jersey has a registry for felony and misdemeanor crimes that stand your record for life. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. APS also has a registry and DCS also has a registry. Neither one of them are made public, but they do show up in background checks. So that would make it like for survivors, at least for the DCS one, that has had a lot of consequences for survivors that have been on the registry due to them being a survivor, but them being put on there because of failure to protect. So I'm really concerned about the conversation around the DV registry. Also, it has lasting, like this really does affect survivors. There are survivors that that have to go to batterer intervention programs because they fought back, because they thought that they were going to die if they didn't. And so law enforcement will arrest them. I just went to a batterer intervention program the other night and did a survivor panel with them, and there was two women in the class, and both of them were survivors, but they were there because they were arrested as well. So like these are some of the things. And then we know that the justice system and the criminal legal system like this is working against people of color. And so like the majority of the people that would be on this registry are most likely going to be people of color because the legal system works against them. And so I'm concerned about the way that would look and the way that would have lasting consequences for people of color moving forward with their lives, especially for those that do go to offender treatment programs and do like change, like, and there is a change in lifestyle and a change in accountability. And so like those are just some of my concerns about the registry. And then I think for like I will always be a huge proponent of like going to schools and going to judges and prosecution and having them take, but this is very difficult work. So like we already have folks that are doing this work. So we have like Bloom, which all of us are very well aware of. We have CIDVIC, who are a group of judges and lawyers and advocates that meet together and talk about this. And judges don't want to be trained on this. And I also think one of the things that we have to realize too is that prevention work, like we would all love to do prevention work, but there's no funding for it. And so how do we, and then you also have like parents and schools that don't want us in the schools talking about healthy relationships. And so I think that this is probably the biggest crux of the problem, is that they just don't want us in the schools talking about this. And so I think that those are going to be huge challenges if we decide to move forward with that work. So not to say that we shouldn't, I'm just saying like there's a funding issue, and then there's also they just don't want us in the schools talking about healthy relationships. So like, those are just my thoughts on all of this. Sorry, I talked really fast, but yeah.
We appreciate you, Sam. Thank you for giving your insight on that. I appreciate it. Everybody who spoke, thank you very much. My thought is I would love to see the data and any publications either about the Canada's efforts to do this. Okay, just to see what is their success rate, because when I was doing victim advocacy specifically in domestic violence and offenders were being sent to classes, the question always came up, it was how successful are the classes and how are we rating that success? Are we rating it just on people who reoffend, who get caught? Or is there another way that we're able to really be able to report back to those who are sent to the classes, but also to the victims that there was growth in understanding and changes in behaviors that we can show, and that we can show that there is success. So if, I don't know, Hunter, if you have any publications, or Sam, if you in your group could share any publications that Canada has put out. If anybody else is interested, I think we could ask Amy if we could share that with the other members. And I'll just open it one more time for questions before we move on, or comments.
Madam Chair, it's Amy. We would be happy to send out any kind of links or research that Hunter has gathered. Thank you. Really appreciate all of the feedback and the conversation today.
I'm sorry, I'm out of order. This is Carol Park Aiden. For Hunter, here's an off-the-wall question. Are any of the programs, you mentioned the UK one, but perhaps Canada or Australia, do any of those, particularly UK, because you mentioned that, involve or include restorative justice as part of how they are intervening in the current pilot project? Do you know what I'm asking?
I somewhat do. I'm not quite sure. I know they talk about rebuilding the family relationships and making sure that the perpetrators atone for their actions and that they change their behavior, and that, you know, the perpetrators, you know, lose access to the program if they don't show that they're truly sorry and they don't change their behavior. It's an evidence-based program.
Okay, and take accountability and et cetera, et cetera. And my follow-up question is, and again, sorry, Hunter, but you mentioned it, so I'm going to ask you. In terms of, you mentioned that there are those that go through some kind of risk assessment to even qualify for this kind of process. I'd sure be interested in any kind of both the timing of intervention and what precedes it, or what is some of the initial, you know, what's their source of risk assessment? How do they go about identifying even eligibility and evaluating the risk assessment in terms of successful outcome? To me, those elements often seem to be missing. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll look into that.
Thank you, Hunter.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the hand so I can raise it, and I do not find it on my screen, which has been updated. So I just unmuted.
The floor is yours.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry. I want to kind of go back to two things. First, you know, when Sam said they don't want us in the schools, education is probably our biggest tool to prevention. The other measures that we take are, you know, the intervention is, you know, after the fact, and trying to rehabilitate and provide safety for the survivors. But on this question about education, and they don't want us in the schools, I know that, and I think all of our communities are trying to find ways we can address that. We do have in El Mirage the El Mirage Cares program, which has until recently had not a lot of support throughout the council. It has had it within the community, but we have some new council members who are very interested in it. One of them asked can't we get into the schools and do assemblies, for instance, on teen dating violence? And I tried to explain, the schools are a totally different district, a different entity. They have their policy, and that's not something that they normally do. There might be some, but because it's so hard to get into the schools, we need to have some alternatives. I know that that's one of the things with El Mirage Cares, we're trying to make that an alternative, but can we get some other ideas of alternatives if we can't break through that barrier within the schools to get this message out, the education? The more we can prevent, the more young people learn that violence is not the answer, the more they can learn about what respect is. I think the more we're going to be able to put, have true prevention.
Can I answer that question for you since I'm a governing board member? I'm going to give you an answer. This is Councilmember Hodge. You don't, when you go, it's the gatekeeper. If depending on who you try to go through the school, if you try to go directly to the district's office, they're going to tell you no. When you ask to speak to a counselor or one of their psychologists, it's a whole different story. It really depends on how you go at it to get into the schools. Because the counselors are the gatekeeper when it comes to kids, when they come in conversation. Find out if the kids have SROs in their schools. Find out other resources, because if you go straightly to the district office is so overwhelmed, the first answer is always no. So I would just check on what things you have that connects you to your schools, because if you have a project, some kind of committee that you have that connects you to from the city to the schools, that's your in to the schools. Like we have SROs, we have our youth specialists, all those are city projects, and that's how we get the information into our schools.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank
That is
you.
a great answer. Yeah, I was going to mention, so thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
All right, I see a few other hands up. Kevin Mattingly.
Thank you. All right, so little unorganized thoughts here. I think we need to be careful to generalize that they, whoever they may be, don't want us in the schools. During this conversation, I went into some of our records here. Last fiscal year, we did 10 separate presentations in high schools in the city of Phoenix in more than one school district by being invited to do them on teen dating violence and the work of the Family Advocacy Center and teen dating violence and family violence, healthy dating, etc. So we're not universally locked out of schools, nor should we be. How we came to have this relationship, I can't speak directly to that in depth at this moment because it existed when I took this position about 4 years ago. We've consistently been in these schools talking to kids directly. We try to track the number of kids we've contacted. We do surveys. When we're done, we try to react to that feedback. I would agree with the sentiment that being in schools and being able to talk about healthy relationships with teenagers is very important, and we should pursue it. We also find that another place where we're very effective and we're very well received is in senior centers, where we're talking about domestic violence among seniors. And in training the senior centers staff, we've realized I wouldn't call it a great increase, but we have realized an uptick in just calls and referrals and in conversations among those folks who work in those centers. In fact, I'll be at one of our senior centers tonight for a different purpose, but the staff that's there, it's a regular stop by the desk and say hi and ask about educational opportunities. So I would just encourage you, if you're another family advocacy center, which is who I represent here in Phoenix, or if you engage directly in outreach in whatever your position is, to not write off schools as this wall we can't get past. Also, during the discussion, I took the liberty to Google, not that I learned very much, about sex education and health classes in Arizona high schools. When I went to high school here a long time ago, and there was a class called health that was had a variety of topics, including sex ed, but did not talk about family violence. And it would seem that might be the logical place within a school for this kind of curriculum. Now, not every school has sex ed, I'm sure, or health, or whatever they call the course, but I think that's an opening there to affect the curriculum. I don't know how to do that, but I just thought I'd offer that up.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing your experiences. I appreciate that. Sam?
I'm muted. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Kevin. I apologize to everybody. I feel like I might have like generalized too much, and that's not what I had intended. So I apologize for that. I definitely think that we should be in schools talking about this. Like I 100%, I will be the first one there. But I just wanted to just caution that it is very difficult. That's all I wanted to say. Like I'll be honest, like the DV, so I sit on the DV commission in Chandler. And we have been able to really have a lot of inroads during Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month and go in and do tablings at lunchtime for almost every high school in that area for the past few years by going through the counselors. And Chandler has 90 counselors on staff for their entire district, which is awesome. And they're so open to it. And so I really appreciate that, that perspective of going through the counselors, because yeah, that totally works. It's awesome. And I know that Tolleson has been a huge proponent of having conversations about sexual, like healthy sexuality for youth, and like having conversations about DV in the past and stuff. I just really wanted to so I feel like, yes, we should be doing this. And I think that for those of you that are able to get into the schools, it is amazing because it is not an easy feat to do. I did want to say one more thing about the Native piece of it, because we didn't talk about that. So I think most of everyone here knows that we have two other coalitions here in the state. So we have SWIC, which was formerly the Southwest Indigenous Women's Coalition, who was asked to be on this council and just recently. And so Amy and I have been having conversations around that with Memory. And because their voice definitely should be in this space with us. And then we also have Hopi Tewa, which is primarily a coalition that works within that community. And so we've got two other coalitions that are native based. And so I just wanted to bring that up, and I would love to have more conversations with them and listen to a presentation by them. And if that's what and make sure that their voices are in this space. There's 22 tribes here in Arizona. And so we need to federally recognize tribes. And so I definitely feel like their voice is needed and should be recognized. So yeah, that's all.
Hey, Hunter, I don't think there's a bigger compliment to the work you're doing than getting a bunch of people to talk about the information you shared. So again, I think you did an excellent job, and I appreciate your time today. We're going to go ahead and move on to item number 6. Yes.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Okay, we're going to move to item number 6 now. Today we'll be discussing and possibly taking action on a proposal to restructure 3 human service committees at MAG. The goal of the assessment is to ensure we can take action on issues that are most important to us, like the ones we were just talking about. A lot of thought has gone into this proposal. A lot of care has been taken to create a meaningful role for the current committee members in this new structure. Amy joins us now to share the proposal. Amy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the council. I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation with you. Just as a reminder, we do have a meeting scheduled on February 20th next month to take whatever additional action the committee might want to take. If you want to take action today, that's great. If you want to hold off until next month, that's absolutely an option as well. We want to make sure that you have all of the information and every opportunity to really consider how you might want to move forward on this. Just as background, the MAG Human Services Technical Committee did recommend approval of this proposal, as did the Human Services and Community Initiatives Committee just earlier this week. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is our current committee structure. The MAG Human Services Division was formed back in 1976. So over almost 50 years, we've grown a lot, but very incrementally. Our two founding committees are the Human Services Initiative Committee and the Human Services Technical Committee. Those were the very first two committees. Over the years, we have added this committee 25 years ago. We just celebrated our anniversary last October. We've also added the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care 25 years ago. And more recently, they've added a number of different collaboratives. There are 9 in total right now that help them to move forward on specific issues. So this is the structure as it stands today. For Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care, that same structure will continue. We're not proposing any changes to that. Whatever changes are made would be at the direction of their board, and so they are held kind of separate from this. We are taking great care to be able to inform them and let them know about these efforts and to get their feedback, but not to propose any changes to their structure. The other 3 committees, though, including this one, are very much involved with this committee with this proposal to restructure the committees and are deeply part of this assessment. To date, we have conducted more than 100 different interviews. A number of them have been with the domestic violence stakeholders, so thank you so much to those who are able to participate. We have in total conducted almost 36 different interviews with you and with other leaders from our community to better understand how can MAG help these regional efforts to align with your local priorities. And it could be your local community's priorities, it could be your agency's priorities, but really we want to make sure that we're building on and supporting what you're doing and that we can bring that to scale through these regional efforts. On the basis of all of these different conversations, we have a proposal in front of us that is for possible action today. And if not today, then possibly next month on February 20th. If you can go to the next slide, please. And this is the proposal. We are proposing to dissolve those 3 committees, this one, as well as Human Services, the Technical Committee and the Human Services and Community Initiatives Committee. In its place, we would form one overarching committee that would be our Community Initiatives Coordinating Committee. That committee would deploy action teams, and this is where the domestic violence work would still continue, hopefully even stronger than it is today. Each of these action teams would be deployed with a very specific scope of work, a timeline, and a set of deliverables. When those when those scopes of work and those deliverables have been achieved, the action team would disband, but they would be free then, and that creates capacity to create additional action teams. So this is very action oriented. It's very much project based, and the Community Initiatives Coordinating Committee is the one that's helping to organize all of that and to make sure that we have appropriate people serving on that. So as you can see, the continuum of care is held separate, and we would want to make sure that we're strengthening the lines of communication between these 2 committees. I was working on the operational plan draft earlier today for this new committee, and there is one designated seat for a domestic violence representative or a representative from the domestic violence stakeholders, and your own vice chair, Vice Mayor Ellis, is proposed to be the vice chair of this new committee. So we very much want to make sure that we continue to address domestic violence initiatives and strengthen the region's response to domestic violence. The idea is that this committee would help us to do that. We can focus more on impact over process. Process is important, but if it's all process, then we're not really making change. And we very much want to be able to partner with you and make these changes. One thing that you don't see on the screen right now are these stakeholder lists. The stakeholder list would be the subject matter experts that would function like an on-call editorial board. So these are people that we could reach out to. So similar to our conversation earlier today. So we would be reaching out to people on the stakeholder list for their technical expertise, for their advice on these new models, these pilot projects, new research, and be able to have the benefit of their perspective And that would help to inform the activities of the action teams. The stakeholder list would also be reached out to when we are recruiting for those new action teams to ask them if they might like to serve on it. One really important point about these action teams is that they are inherently multidisciplinary. So for example, just in our previous conversation, when we're talking about the research regarding the domestic violence initiatives, we talked about housing and criminal justice and education. We can also be talking about healthcare and the faith community. So these action teams will be multidisciplinary. And so when we're recruiting members, we'll be recruiting members from the domestic violence response system. We'll also be recruiting the representatives and the leaders, say, from the housing system and from healthcare and employers and just from all these different sectors, because it takes a holistic response to really make an impact in this area and really in so many other areas. So those stakeholder lists will really be key, because we are really very much focused on making sure that everyone who is currently with us through these 3 committees, that everyone has a seat on the new bus, whether it's serving on the committee itself, on an action team, or through the stakeholder list, and people might be moving among all 3. Every action team would have a sponsor from the committee to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open and strong throughout all of our work. If we can go to the next slide, please. So a little bit more detail then about those action teams. As I said, each one would be deployed with very specific direction, and that direction would help them with that clarity in terms of what are they doing, what's going to be different as a result of this action team meeting. Each one will have that sponsor that will help to keep those lines of communication open, and an action team might be activated for a particular period of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years if it's a bigger project. But then when they're done, then they can disband and join a new action team. And so it helps to keep it really fluid. It helps to hopefully energize the membership because they're doing things together. We will have a few teams that will be ongoing. We'll have a scoping team. That scoping team will be providing technical assistance to the committee, and that will be meeting throughout the year, every year moving forward. We will also be or expect to convene teams on a regular basis, but not all year necessarily. So action teams, for example, around Domestic Violence Awareness Month, or maybe Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, they might be activated in the case of October is being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The team might start, for example, meeting over the summer. They'll develop a really robust program, and then in November, when their work is done, then they will disband, and maybe they start getting ready for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month coming up in February. Again, it's really having a priority on using people's time really wisely, and to be able to leverage and maximize the resources that we have available. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Again, there are a number of ways to participate in this new structure. We want everyone to still continue working with us. We have developed really strong relationships with you over the years. We want to make sure that we can maintain those and strengthen those by providing these action-oriented opportunities to become involved. One would be on the committee itself. We see that as being comprised mainly of elected officials and community leaders. Also on the project-specific action teams, we would love to be able to work with you to really do a deeper dive into these projects and be able to do more together. Also, volunteering to be part of that stakeholder list that maybe if you don't have time on an ongoing basis, but you're passionate about a particular topic, we can call. So then we could call you when we're addressing that topic, and then you could activate and become involved. We are also planning a joint retreat on March 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the MAG offices. We really hope that you'll be able to come. We'll be sending out the agenda for that within the next week or so. We have some fantastic speakers lined up, some great activities to really draw on the expertise of people who have given so much to these human services efforts over the years, and really energize and organize people for the work that we'll be able to do together moving forward. Events like that may be continuing on in the future as we continue to mobilize within this new structure if this is approved. Next slide, please. So this is the timeline then. In January, just this month, it's still January, HSTC and HSCIC have both voted to recommend approval of this. You have that opportunity today. I wanted to be able to list it as possible action in case you're really excited and you want to vote today. I didn't want to stop you from doing that. Also mindful that this is the first time that you're hearing about it, and it's a huge change. So we do have our meeting next month in February to offer another opportunity for action if that's helpful to you. In March, we do have that big event on the 18th. Again, please do mark it on your calendars. Please do join us for that. And at that event, we'll also be taking action potentially on a recommendation of approval for the operational plan, where it really details out how many seats and who fills them and what does that look like. That's where the details will come into play. Hopefully we'll be recommending approval of that in March. And then in April, I'll be bringing both the proposed structure and the operational plan to our management committee and our regional council for their action. And then if we do receive approval at that time, we would open up the membership process in May, circle back to management committee in June and to regional council at the end of June, asking them to approve that membership slate. After that hopefully occurs, then we would be activating the new committee, forming a charter, getting really clear on what are we doing and how are we doing it together, and then being able to launch into this new structure together. We can go into the next slide, please. So this is the action that's requested. It can be information. Hopefully it has provided good information to you and some clarity about this proposed new structure. Hopefully we'll have some great discussion. I know a few of you need to drop off. And if you would like to take action, that is available to you today. And if not, we can certainly do that next month at the February meeting. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or ideas that folks might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Does
Thank
anybody have any questions or feedback on Amy's presentation? Oh, I see a couple hands. Councilmember Hodges.
Yeah, mine is not really a question. I think it's a great idea. I would love to take action and vote it in today because if we're gonna do it, I don't know, a few of us only have like 2 minutes left before. If not, then we can wait till next month.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Kevin Mattingly.
Thank you. I'm going to take the opposite approach. I heard about this 3 minutes ago in detail, and I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I voted on something as sweeping as this with 3 minutes worth of education. But towards that point, is there an opportunity for maybe an executive session or some other Q&A, maybe even a smaller group that doesn't require quorum, where we can learn about this and maybe talk about its practical application? What came into my mind in a heartbeat was we just got done talking about the need for educational outreach, and that would seem like a real good topic for an action team. But I would want to understand how action teams are formed, how a decision is made to form one for this, but not that, how the capacity of topics is managed, because if you tried to form an action team for everything we want to work on all at the same time, you'd have 40 action teams of 2. Right? So lots of questions in my head swimming around. I'm not opposed to change. I just want it to be thoughtful.
Thank you, Kevin. So we actually have 2 motions, essentially, is what I would call them, on the table. And I know some people are limited in how much time they have left. Do we want to do just a quick voice of anybody who would like to hold off until February 20th to vote? And get a yay or nay or holding off on that so that those who need to jump off know where we're at on that. Would that be okay, Amy?
Madam Chair, that was certainly fine. I'm not sure that we need a motion to do that. If the consensus is to wait until the February meeting, we can certainly do that. Also, really happy to provide kind of a open forum at another time, maybe within the next 2 weeks or so before the February 20th meeting, so we can do a deeper dive into this. If we anticipate having quorum, then it would need to be a posted meeting, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. We're happy to really offer every opportunity to discuss this. We do understand that it's a big change. That's really why I thought it was critically important to have this meeting scheduled and the February meeting scheduled as well. I think it's important that people have the opportunity to really dig in and to deeply understand what this is proposing, and that many will want to do that before they vote.
So I already see that some people have dropped off. And I want to make sure we have a quorum. So what would your recommendation be right now?
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. So if the committee wanted to take action today, we certainly could. We can absolutely wait on the action, and we would be happy to schedule kind of, I guess, almost like a study session. And we can let you know the date. And if you're able to come, great. If you're not able to come, then let us know. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one as well. So really, it's whatever that the council would like to do. If there are those who would like to vote, then that's on the agenda. But we're happy to take the time as well.
I would like to, I'm sorry, again, I don't find anything to raise the hand. I'm not sure what's happened with this,
It's
but
under reactions.
reactions, okay.
Go ahead, Chair Nord.
I agree with Councilmember Mattingly. I don't feel in this short of time taking a vote today is, I think we need to have a more comprehensive look at this.
Yes.
And a study session would be great. I think better versus small, because if we do small group sessions, there may be things said that others would, it would be really vital, good information. And we all need to be able to hear that before we can make good, sound judgments on this. And so I feel it would not be in the best interest to try to take a vote today on this, but get a work study session on this later. Have time to look more into it, go deeper.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, looks like Councilmember Torgerson has his hand raised as well.
Yeah, in discussing this the other day in town, I believe the other two boards that would be affected were both supportive of this already.
Yes, that is correct.
I would think that it's if you want to get something accomplished, to go through a study session to decide if you want to decide on it, either vote yes or no at this point, because you're only slowing the machine down. It would be much more productive, I think, to at least take a temperature at this moment, and then if it fails, to put your study session together. But I would think that if the other 2/3 of the affected parties are supportive, why would we throw a roadblock into that? It just why? I mean, is the specifics of this board so overwhelmingly strong that it shouldn't go with restructuring as the majority of people already wished?
Thank you for your input. So as we said, this is on the agenda for possible action, and we do have another committee meeting scheduled for next month on February 20th. And if we want that some time to think about the proposal, that's okay. I am confident that this new structure will help us be more action oriented, that the action teams will keep us focused on activities that will make a difference. With our own council member, Ellis, as the vice chair, we know our priorities will be heard. And I fully support this change and look forward to participating in the new structure if that's what we decide to do. Would anyone like to make a proposal for a motion to recommend the proposal?
Madam Chair, if I may, it looks like Vice Chair Ellis has her hand raised as well. I just wanted to make sure that you had seen that.
Oh, I did not. Thank you. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yes, truly appreciate all the work that's been done and the proposal that is before us today. I believe we are the last year to see this proposal. The reason for is because it had already been done the work with those it will be affected. And for us, it's to just give them the ability to move forward and do their work. That's all we are doing with this proposal. I don't see it affect us at the level that we are right now. It's just permission we're given for them to go back and continue to do their work, but they want to concisely put it together because the research has been, it's evidence-based that we have not been as effective that we could be as a board. And so we did tell them, go back, do research, work on different ways to bring back to us to show us how that's going to impact us in the future. If we want to continue to do meaningful work, we can't continue doing the same thing that we were doing before and not getting great results. And it's in that light, this was brought to us, not to give us more things to decipher through and make decisions for them. It was mainly go do the work, figure out how you want to do it. But because we are that board at that level, it's important then we have eyes on it and then we go ahead and okay for it to move forward. That's all we're doing. So I do agree that if it stops with us right now, the work will be meaningless. It will, what they just did will not be continuing. But at the same time, I also value the fact that people require more information in order to make their vote valuable to them. And I'll be more than happy if we can have staff meet with you on a on a one-on-one basis to give you more information. And then after that, we make the vote. But I can make a motion right now for us to move forward with this vote. And if it fails, then we go back and continue to work with individuals who feel that they voted no to it right now. We can work with them on one-on-one, and those who say yes, then we know we are okay, and then we can move forward. Is that okay, Madam Chair, if we do it like that?
Thank you for the recommendation, Vice Chair Ellis. I'm gonna turn to Amy for her expertise on how we would move forward with your motion.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. It looks like we have hands up from Councilmember I'm so sorry, Calabanakis and Councilmember Norton as well.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember Brenda, because I can pronounce your name, your first name. And we're unable to hear you if you are talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I would like to concur with Vice Mayor Ellis and continue to a vote. It sounds to me like there's been a lot of thought, a lot of research put into this, and I would be for just getting it moving along, at least taking a vote today to see where we're at. So I'd like to second her motion.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Norton. If you're speaking, we can't hear you, Councilmember Norton.
Everything blinked out. Okay. So I just want to get an understanding based on the graph that was shown. So the vote today, and I know that Vice Chair Ellis said that there would be no change, but based on what was just displayed, it appears to me, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, Amy or anyone, based on this, going to that new structure, the Regional Domestic Violence Council, as it exists to this day,
That's right.
you know, all that are gathered here, will no longer exist.
That's right.
Then each of these little action teams, etc., will be filled as they come along, and so there'll be probably a constant changing. And when I say constant, I don't mean every day, but for the particular action items changing on a throughout the year. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Norton and members of the council, yes, that is correct. According to this proposal, the three committees would dissolve. We would form the new overarching committee, and then the committee would deploy action teams. And those action teams would, for the most part, come and go. So when they achieve their scope of work, then they would disband, and that creates capacity to be able to take on a new action team or a new initiative. So, and another.
Go ahead.
So sorry. It just because you had referenced the graphic too, that we can have the study session anytime. We do have the meeting, the next meeting of this committee scheduled for February 20th. And then the joint retreat is until March. So if you vote this month or next month, it doesn't disrupt the timeline. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. And we're happy to move forward at whatever pace you would choose to do so as a council.
Okay, so let me ask you first, what's the date on that retreat? You said March and it didn't come through over here.
Sorry, it's March 8th. Sorry, it's March 18th. March 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay. And then, so then with the, this council as we have and see here today is no longer in existence as the effective date of that in May, then is it the collaborative, I don't see the graph again. Where are the various topics or areas of concern for needing the various action teams? Where is that coming from? How is that being developed as time goes along?
Absolutely. So the scoping team would take the primary responsibility for that. They would be drawing input from the stakeholder list as well. And so if there are items that you would like to see developed into action teams, then you would have every opportunity to recommend those. And we're happy at MAG to support that with any kind of additional research, outreach, additional interviews, things like that. And then the scoping team would be recommending to the committee on the action teams that could be deployed. Moving forward, there may also be additional events like the March 18th event, like the joint retreat, to be able to gather input very, very inclusively from a broader selection. From a broader array of different stakeholders throughout the community.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I heard a motion from Vice Chair Ellis and a second from, I cannot remember who gave the second.
That's Councilmember Brenda.
Thank you. To move forward with voting to whether to approve this action or not, of disbanding the Domestic Violence Regional Council and moving forward with the new structure. With the motion and the second, Amy, can we go ahead and move forward? Do we want to identify what, if it comes up back no, if the majority says no, what that would look like? Or do we want to take the vote first and then, depending on the outcome, discuss what would be the next steps?
Madam Chair, happy to provide any information. If it does pass, then it would move forward and the no's would be listed in future committee materials, just so people would understand if it was a split vote. If the motion does not pass, then another motion could be made, and or we can move forward with that study session and then reconvene in February as the Domestic Violence Council, so that you could have another opportunity to vote on that recommendation.
Perfect. So with the motion and the second, if we can go ahead and conduct the vote, and the vote that we are asking is, do you approve us moving forward with the proposed committee structure? Amy, whenever you're ready, do we do it?
Thank you. And if all members could please turn on your cameras if you do wish to participate in the voice vote. If you are unable to or do not want to turn on your cameras, that's fine. We're happy to do a roll call vote afterwards if any members needing to still vote who did not participate in that voice vote. So for the voice vote, all members in favor, please say aye and keep your cameras on.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I'm sure it might be a little bit easier if we do a roll call vote, actually, if that's all right with you.
Please,
It's a
that
little
would be awesome.
difficult to see who's saying it yes or no all at the same time.
Okay, yeah, let's do a roll call. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you. Patricia, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Celeste, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Emily, Karen, how do you vote? Emily? Sorry. Tanya, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ellis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Ernst, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Brenda, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Cindy, how do you vote?
Me?
Cindy Garcia, yes?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Cindy Garcia? No response. Laura, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Christine, how do you vote? Christine Hahn McDonald, how do you vote? No response. Danielle, how do you vote on behalf of Elizabeth?
Aye.
Thank you. Samantha, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodge, how do you vote? She may have had to step out. Cindy Severino, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Andrew Lefevre, are you here? Kevin Rudnick, how do you vote? Kevin, how do you vote?
So I vote nay.
Nay, thank you. Councilmember Norton, how do you vote?
Nay.
Thank you. Amy Offenberg, how do you vote?
Nay.
Thank you. Carol Park Aiden, how do you vote? Carol? No response?
Hello?
Oh, yes, Carol.
This is odd. I usually don't sit on the fence. I just want more information between now and February, so I would abstain at this time.
Thank you very much. Chris Charlo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Amy Marmol, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Councilmember Torgerson, how do you vote?
Yay.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we have, I heard 3 nays, 1 abstention, the rest were ayes, and the motion carries.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all for voting. Amy, can I make a recommendation for those who said nay, if they still would like to get more information? Could they reach out to you and ask you for that meeting still?
Absolutely. We are more than happy to meet with anyone. And if you would still like to keep the February meeting, we can go into more detail on the draft operational plan too, to make sure that we have the benefit of your input. We're happy to meet with members before the next meeting, though, just to make sure that you have ample opportunity to have any questions asked and answered.
Thank you very much. So thank you again. The motion carries. Before we proceed, I want to take a moment to honor the work that we've all done together over the past 25 years. For 25 years, we've worked hard and achieved a lot together. We have improved the criminal justice system's response to domestic violence, given healthcare providers the tools they need to identify and intervene. We've worked with employers and congregations, teens, and older adults. With this change, we are ready to continue this legacy of impact in the future. It is easier to continue with the status quo. It's harder and braver to make changes that will result in better outcomes. Thank you for the confidence and the trust you've placed in us. We look forward to working through the exciting changes with you. Please make sure you can attend the joint retreat on March 18th. And I will take a motion, I guess, if you guys would like to continue to meet on February, we will be happy to do that.
Madam Chair, just to note that we don't need a motion since the meeting is already scheduled. We're happy to keep that meeting and look forward to the study session being scheduled as well.
Perfect. Let's do that. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I just take motions on everything. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. Again, thank you guys, and we hope to see you in February. Our next agenda item is the future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Vice Chair Ellis, I'm not sure if your hand is still up from the last time or if you have something you'd like to add.
No, thank you. It's still on from the last time. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll just put it down. Appreciate that. Thank you for all the work.
Thank you so much. Hearing nothing for future agendas items, does anyone have any brief updates or news they'd like to share with the committee? Hearing none, this concludes our meeting. We look forward to seeing you at our next meeting next month.
Wait a second, Norton has some, Councilman Norton has some for us.
Oh,
Apologies.
sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. Councilmember Norton.
Sorry, I was a little late in getting that
No
hand
worries.
up. No, I just wanted to, I know other cities may be also doing things. We do have a teen dating violence community forum that we're having on Wednesday, February 12th here at the City Library that will be open to the public. And we have speakers coming from ACES, Bloom 365, and we're hoping to have at least a parent of a teen who suffered teen dating violence at that. So we'll be posting that and have our social media out. But I did want to let others know if they're interested in attending. And then I don't know if I had mentioned before about the walk that we had on the Walk to End Domestic Violence in October, but it was a very successful. And I hope that we'll be able to continue with the regional council to really do something big for the October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Norton. Thank you for all the work that you do in your community, and I'm excited to hear about what your community is doing to recognize teen dating violence awareness. Any other announcements? All right. Well, then that concludes our meeting. We look forward to seeing you in February. We will continue to discuss the assessment and restructuring of the committees. Please feel free to reach out to the AMAG division if you have any questions. I appreciate y'all. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.